Chapter 2. Third Crime's the Charm. Jokes and exaggerated stories bounced around the bar freely. It was clear nobody knew how close they were to the Reaper's scythe. Link leaned back in his chair and interlocked his fingers, resting his hands on the table. The posture looked relaxed, but it kept his hands near his weapon and his body farther away from his enemy. "How did you find me?" he asked after the tavern wench left with his order. Marcus smiled. He was not fooled by the outlaw's relaxed posture. "The first time I found you, I'd heard reports of a man single-handedly defeating a golem in northern Absistus," Marcus answered. The man spoke with a voice that was friendly and intelligible. "There can only be a few dozen bodies in the realm that can achieve such a feat. I wagered it was none other than Hyrule's hero of time. I shared my opinion with the royal court, and they must have seen some merit to the claim, because they sent a team of assassins." Link nodded. With his right hand, his non-sword hand, he reached up and stroked his beard contemplatively. "I came across a group of well-trained men who could fit such a description." The serving girl arrived with Link's drink. Without a word to her, he reached inside his tunic with his right hand and pulled out a blue rupee. "That could have just been a coincidence, though." Link brought the mead to his lips and took a small sip. Marcus brought his hands up and shrugged. "Stranger things have happened. We never heard from those men again. The council declared them dead after a year's absence." Link nodded again, and a gentle grin tugged at the side of his lips. "It was a peaceful year after I left Absistus." "Well-deserved peace, no doubt." Marcus's eyes were slowly moving from Link to the hilt of his sword to his hand. Calculating how fast it would take Link to draw his weapon, no doubt. The knight continued after his brief pause. "It was not until after 2 years that I found you the second time. You see, a friend of mine told me about his trip through the Hara Desert." A scowl spread across Link's face. "He told me he came across a city that was once cursed by a djinn, then was blessed by that same djinn after a man in a green tunic defeated it. How many people in this world do you think could stand toe-to-toe against a magic-wielding djinn?" Link shrugged. "I don't know," he lied. Currently alive, there were exactly 8. 2 were sitting in the same room at the same table. "Less than a dozen," Marcus answered. He squinted his eyes slightly, searching Link's face for some emotion. "A sorcerer appeared while I was traveling through the western deserts." Link didn't bother hiding his frown. It was a painful memory. "He nearly leveled the city you speak of in his attempt to kill me." Marcus sighed sympathetically. "I was against the council sending Machado. I would have met you there myself, were I not still in training at the time." Link waved the memory off and took another sip of his drink. "And what of your training, Marcus Brutus?" he asked when he'd set his glass down. "Tales of your exploits echo from Farron Woods to Absistus to Oceania to the Oka." "You flatter me." The knight tilted his head just enough that Link would say he was bowing. This man was careful and calculating. "But my exploits were only louder than your own, not more grand." Both men paused and glanced at the entrance as 2 bodies burst through the door. At first, Link thought they were shouting at one another, but then he realized they were only singing very, very poorly. 37 men. 10 too intoxicated to fight. "What to you, Sir Brutus, is the difference between louder and grander?" Link asked. "Recognition is essentially the term that encompasses my definition of a loud deed," Marcus explained. "Because of my role as a knight, every accomplishment of mine is proclaimed by the court and announced and cried to everyone who will listen." Marcus leaned forward, hands innocently tucked close to his body. Link's pointer finger twitched. "Everyone knows I slew the sea worm because King Yusuf insisted the whole realm know." A nod from the bearded outlaw. "I recall he used your achievement to negotiate free passage for the merchants through the docks." "But nobody knows that you slew the demon Bongo Bongo," Marcus continued without acknowledging Link's comment. "Most people don't even know the monster existed. Even more incredulous." He was becoming animated, growing excited while he talked. It occurred to Link that this young knight may in fact be a huge fan of his. Only a handful of people know it was you who defeated the deity Majora and kept the moon from falling. The moon! Link smiled despite the gravity of his situation. All these years of service to the greater good, and he had only received the most humble amount of praise. It felt good to be recognized, even if it was by the demon slayer himself. You slew Beelzebub, Link stated coolly. To be honest, he wasn't 100% sure that was the truth, but he suspected it. The statement seemed to calm the knight down. You would have made short work of him yourself, Marcus said quietly. Although he was staring at Link, the hero of time suspected the man's vision was elsewhere, recalling what had to have been a hellish ordeal, no doubt. Link said nothing, just took another sip of his mead. The two sat quietly for 4 minutes and 37 seconds until the heroic criminal spoke up again. How did you find me this time? He asked. Marcus shook his head gently. You should not have come so close to Hyrule. One of the elderly knights recognized you when you were in Termina. It's been 18 years since I last passed through Termina, Link countered, and 20 since I left Hyrule. How did he recognize me? With his middle finger, the knight tapped the table twice in rapid succession, paused, then tapped again. He did this multiple times while holding Link's gaze. Epona, Link answered when he understood. He should have known. There are not many horses like your old mare. In fact, I cannot say that I have ever seen a second horse with such a red coat and white mane. She is unique. Marcus grinned. Sticking to a monochromatic wardrobe did you no favors. Link shrugged for a second time since the conversation started. I like the color. The color of balance and harmony. Marcus raised his glass as he spoke, as if toasting Link. Green is said to create an equilibrium between the head and the heart, an emotionally positive color that also represents nature and growth. You sound like a painter or a poet, Sir Brutus. Marcus chuckled softly. In another life, perhaps. Both men brought their cups up simultaneously and took a sip, their eyes not for a second leaving the others. When it starts, how will it begin? Link asked. Despite himself, he was becoming impatient. The knight's dark eyebrows raised in surprise at his friend's boldness. Link leaned 2 inches forward, sliding his left hand closer to his weapon and his right hand towards his glass. I have no doubt concerning your prowess with that longsword, Link said as he moved. But I am curious how you intend to use it properly while seated and in such tight quarters. Link continued even as Marcus was opening his mouth. Even if you were the fastest swordsman in the world, my broadsword would beat yours out of its sheath. Your dagger would allow you a chance to parry, but you are still trapped in a room with 38 bodies, 12 tables, 43 chairs, and a 20-foot-long counter. Marcus closed his mouth and waited patiently for Link to finish. A respectful, intrigued look filled his face. Anything other than a thrust risks entangling your longsword, and I doubt you are bold enough to rely only on your dagger against my broadsword. Link was staring intently into Marcus's eyes, as if he paid enough attention, the answer would reveal itself. You know this, though. That means one of 2 things will happen. An ally of yours will arrive, and the 2 or 3 of you will engage me, or... Link squinted hard at the man. You are prepared to take hostages and slay innocent lives in order to subdue me. A pained smile made its way onto the young knight's face. I will tell you honestly, if you will tell me why the Royal Council has sentenced you to death. Link blinked in surprise. You don't know? He leaned back an inch. You are prepared to carry out your orders without knowing my crimes? It has never been my place to question the orders of the king or his council. Link returned to his original posture, but with his hands in their modified position. He waited 53 seconds before opening his mouth. I have been charged with 3 crimes, 3 that I know of. Link held up 3 fingers on his right hand. Stealing a relic from the royal family, violating a sacred law. Link paused, reluctant to utter the words. Sir Marcus Brutus said them for him. And the murder of Queen Zelda. To be continued.